Hey everybody, welcome to Life in Calgary, Alberta. I'm your host, Patrick Murray, and today we're talking about the top 10 reasons not to move to Calgary, Alberta. But before we do that, if this is your first time on this channel and you want to know everything there is about what it's like to eat, sleep, breathe, live, and play in Calgary, Alberta, then please just hit that subscribe button and click that little bell so you get notified every single time I release a new video. Now guys, I have to tell you, I've lived in 5 different major cities in my adult lifetime, but I moved to Calgary way back in 2001. Yes, I know it's a little while ago, but I stayed. And the reason I stayed is because it's a great city. But not only have I been here that long, I've been a realtor here since 2010. And all of this means I have some specialized knowledge about the city of Calgary and the surrounding bedroom communities. So if you are considering a move to the city of Calgary or one of these bedroom communities and you would like some assistance to purchase a home, please feel free to reach out to me. Send me a text, email, or a phone call. I will absolutely get back to you. Okay guys, let's do this. Let's talk about the top 10 reasons not to move to Calgary, Alberta right after this. All right, so let's get into this. The top 10 reasons not to move to Calgary, Alberta. Now guys, I have some notes with me today because I've got lots to share with you, so bear with me. Let's get into things right now. Number 1 on my list is the weather. Now, I gotta tell you, I was born and raised in Saskatchewan. And you know what? What I really like about Saskatchewan is you know what you're gonna get weather-wise. You know, the summers are gonna be scorching hot, and the winters are, well, they're gonna be pretty darn cold. But you know what? We always know what we're getting, so it's fairly predictable from one year to the next. But that's not the case here in Alberta, specifically not here in Calgary. No, here the weather is a completely different animal. So for example, we can get all 4 seasons in one single day here in Calgary. Yeah, that's right, we can get you know, a nice sunny day. We can get wind and rain, hail, we can get snow even. Yes, it snowed in July before, and you know that hasn't happened for a long time, but it can occur. And we have a saying here in Calgary, if you don't like the weather, wait 5 minutes. So that's one of the things I don't like. And you know, while winter can be fairly temperate overall, you know, we're probably sitting -3 to 0, that sort of thing. Overnight temperatures are much cooler, of course, but then it warms up a little bit in the daytime to those nicer, warmer temperatures. Well, we can get some pretty severe cold snaps. Now, why is this a big deal? Because we're not used to it. We like our temperate temperatures, but we can get really, really cold. And if you see some of my earlier videos, you'll see that we had some record-setting cold temperatures in Alberta this past winter. And in fact, you'll see me outside on very cold days shivering away as I make a video to tell you about the weather in Calgary specifically. But you know, these cold snaps generally don't last that long. You know, sometimes a week, 2 weeks is pretty long for a cold snap. Sometimes it does occur, but I would say in most cases we get these cold snaps, they last for about a week at a time. But it is something to be aware of. Now, summers here are historically fairly temperate. I mean, they're not, historically they're not that warm. That was one thing I noticed moving from Saskatchewan, living in other centers. When I moved to Calgary, summers weren't overly hot. You know, probably 23, you know, that sort of thing, 23 degrees Celsius, that is. However, it's been getting much warmer in the summer times. In fact, because the summers have been fairly temperate, a lot of people here don't have air conditioning, but that is changing. A lot more people are putting in air conditioning into their homes. And the reason why? Well, we are getting hot spells that last, well, a lot longer than the couple of weeks where we could previously open our windows and just let the wind cool our home in the evening so that we could sleep. Now it's getting much warmer. In fact, we've had some real hot weeks where it's gone on, you know, 30 degrees Celsius plus. So it can be fairly uncomfortable as well. And so that's one thing about Calgary is the weather. Number 2 on my list of my top 10 reasons not to move to Calgary, Alberta has to do with something we call chinooks. Okay, don't worry, if you don't live in Calgary, you're probably not going to know what a chinook is, and that's all right, because it is a weather phenomenon that's fairly specific to this region due to the mountains and the foothills. So what is a chinook? Well, chinooks are these nice warm winds that blow over the mountains and the foothills, and then we get this real ridge of cloud over the city. That yes, it's kind of darker, it's a cloud barrier, we're not getting a lot of sun at that time, but what it does is it insulates this warm air. So you can see how this could be a real plus for the city here, because we could have a really cold day, and then we, you know, for example, we might be -10 one day, and the next day we could be as high as, say, +16 degrees Celsius. And I've said it in other videos, yes, you will see people walking around in their shorts, and again, why? Well, because I think they can. But this is, you know, a nice break from winter. This is a nice reprieve for us, but it does come with a bit of a downfall. So this isn't nice for all people, because some people suffer from headaches when they get sudden weather changes, whether you call it the pressure or the ions in the air, whatever it is. I sometimes get it. My son certainly gets it from time to time, but I know people that get it very badly. They get headaches, and other people are unaffected. But this is one thing that you should be aware of if you're considering a move to Calgary, Alberta. Number 3 has to do with hailstorms. Yes, we get hail here in Calgary, Alberta. So for example, we are towards the end of May right now, 2024, as I'm making this video, and we've been getting a lot of rain this past May. Today is a rare sunny day today, thank God. I'm so glad to see the sun because I've been really craving it. However, with some of the rain, we've had a little bit of hail. Not big, but we've had little small pieces of hail coming through. Now, remember I was talking about how rapidly the weather can change here. We get these 4 seasons, and when that happens, sometimes we can get some pretty large hail here, which can decimate your garden or your plant life. So, for example, in my household, if we think hail's coming, I'll be making sure my cars are in the garage. I'll be running around outside, putting the plants under the table, our patio set, so that they're protected, so they're not decimated, and trying to find a way to cover up some of my garden areas so they're not destroyed. But Calgary can also get some very, very, very severe hail at the same time. So in the northeast region of the city a few years back, there was such a terrible hailstorm. If you were to drive up there after, and for like a year or so after, it would have looked like it was decimated in Armageddon. There were holes in siding everywhere. There was lots of roof damage. Cars and homes had their windows broken from the hail. I mean, it was big hail. Some homes I know had hail come through their roof, and it was actually raining inside their houses. That's how severe it is. So is this a common thing? I wouldn't say it's common to get that big, but it does occur. It's not that it's uncommon either. So it's something you got to be aware of. And you know, if you want windshield coverage for your car to protect it from damage such as hail, that sort of thing, well, insurance coverage for windshields in Alberta is very expensive. There are very few carriers that do that. So that's another thing to be aware of, is hail. So we're on a bit of a roll here. We've been talking about different weather phenomenon that affects Calgary, but now I'm going to talk about chipped and cracked windshields, and just a nice segue from the last section we just talked about. Now, like I said, we can get that severe weather. The city does put down sand and gravel in the wintertime to make the roads a little more passable due to winter and all the ice, because we can get black ice. So you want to make sure you have winter tires on your car so that they grip the road a little bit better. But that's not a fail-safe for everything. You got to drive sensibly. And that's why the city tries to clear the roads as best they can, especially on major thoroughfares. But like I said, they put down these different mixtures on the road, and some of that is gravel and sand. Now, this happens as soon as the snow flies in the fall, continues on through the winter, and then into spring, of course, because we still get snowfall in the spring. Yes, the city does its best to clean it up, but this takes time. Now, as you can imagine, a fast-moving vehicle could kick up some of those rocks, and you can get a lot of rocks flying. Specifically on Deerfoot Trail, a fast-moving freeway, the largest, most busiest, freeway in all of Alberta. So, something to be aware of is some years, well, it's kind of like playing the lottery, if you will. Some years, you may escape without any rock chips on your windshield. Good for you. Other years, you might get a little chip or a couple chips. You want to go get those fixed right away. And other years, you'll get a big chip or a few big chips. And, you know, cumulatively, that's a big word today, over the course of a couple of years, of course, it's going to wreck your windshield. And these can turn into big cracks as well. So something to be aware of is there's a high probability you will get a crack in your windshield. And it's something you need to take care of and get repaired. Because also, if you can't see through your windshield, hey, that's a ticket with the police as well. So cracked and chipped windshields, that's another one of my peeves. Number 5 on my list has to do with school class sizes. All right, so this is another challenge in the city of Calgary with large class sizes. Our schools here are literally bursting at the seams. Now, our city has experienced a rapid population boom from people moving to our city, and not people just moving from other countries, but people moving from other provinces as well, to try to make a better life for themselves, less expensive. You know, it's a lower tax rate here in Alberta. Our homes from larger cities, other larger cities are less expensive than other larger cities. So these are some pluses, and that's why people move here as well. And hey, it's a great city. We're close to the mountains and lots of other great things. And we welcome these visitors. I really do. I welcome all people, because a lot of Calgary is made up of people from other places, such as myself. But more people, especially this rapid growth, can mean that there's challenges with infrastructure. Part of that infrastructure has to do with schools, because we have, you know, some of the people moving here are families, of course, and they have families and they have kids. Now, kids are our greatest asset because they are our future. So we want to make sure they're well looked after as well. But because Calgary is expanding, we see a lot of new communities popping up, and these communities don't have schools. So kids are being bused to other schools within the city, perhaps in the inner city, because some of the schools are getting quite full up. And this creates a real strain on classroom sizes. Now, we also need teachers, and we also need more schools, right? So we need our government to step up and to fund more schools, fund more teachers, so that we can better educate our kids and make sure that they're well looked after. And as you can imagine, having large class sizes can create a huge strain psychologically on our educators as well. So that is a challenge here in Calgary, as we currently have large class sizes. We hope that will improve, but it's something to be aware of. Number 6 on my list is traffic. Okay. Calgary is still very much a car-dependent city. I mean, yes, we have the C train, and they are adding to the C train by putting in another line. And, you know, it's certainly better from when I moved here in 2001. There are, you know, the C train is expanding. You know, there's good bus service here as well. The city spent a lot of money on bus service. So there are other ways to get around. However, we're still very much a car-dependent city. You live in the suburbs, you're going to need a vehicle likely to get to the grocery store, so on and so forth. So roadways, as you can imagine, because of so many people driving, become very congested. And if there's an accident, say on Deerfoot Trail, which is a major freeway, that fast-moving roadway at 100 kilometers an hour can become a parking lot quite quickly. And that can really ruin your commute and make it very, very long. And consider the first major snowfall of the season, in our city. Depending on the conditions and how slippery it is, some years, and you know, it's taken me a while to get home, and I live in the inner city, but people that live in the suburbs, I've heard it taking people, you know, 4 hours to get home before, so if the conditions are right in the snowstorm. So these are things to be aware of. Our roadways can get quite congested. Now, I know these are big city problems, right? And they may not be unique to other large centers, but if you're coming from a smaller center and you're moving to Calgary, it's something you need to be aware of. Our roadways are congested due to the amount of traffic. Which brings me to number 7, construction. Guys, this is a real hot button on my list for me personally, one of my biggest pet peeves. Now, I used to say that Calgary has 2 seasons. There's winter time and then there's construction season. Well, lately that's kind of changed. It seems like it's construction season all the time. And you know, it really drives me nuts. So we seem to have a plethora of huge construction projects going on in Calgary at all times. Now, partly understandable. I've already talked about migration and how many people we have here. So I understand that a large city needs to keep up with new infrastructure, you know, building new roadways, fixing interchanges, creating larger interchanges, you know, and then there's the upkeep of the current roadways, right? So things like a bridge coming into the downtown core, which is happening right now, which is a major artery into the downtown core. And then, you know, making that down to 1 lane of traffic coming into the downtown core. You can see that this will put a huge strain on traffic. Also moves traffic into other arteries coming into downtown, which is already strained, and there may be construction in those areas as well. So, you know, these projects don't happen overnight. They take time. In fact, this one might take a couple of years to get finished properly. And you know what? I appreciate it. I appreciate the maintaining of current infrastructure because it keeps us safe. So we don't want any bridges collapsing on anybody. But at the same time, it is one of my peeves. And not only that, we have lots of buildings being built downtown and, you know, some of the roadways being shut down. You know, there's repairs taking place all the time. And honestly, guys, it just drives me crazy. Now, couple this with the fact that, as I said earlier, there's a new C train line being added to the city. And so there's been a lot of closures with roadways due to that as well. And that also adds to this train as well. So guys, I get it. It's required. I don't like it still. I know it's necessary, but it's one of my peeves and something you should be aware of. The cost of parking here, guys, is crazy. So, you know, it's very expensive here in Calgary. If you plan on driving to the downtown core and you want to park your car, be prepared that it's going to cost you a bit of money. So think like a car payment, for example. So, for example, it could cost you anywhere from $110 a month. And this is off the internet, guys, but I got to tell you, I challenge you to find me parking for $110 a month downtown because I don't think it exists. All the way up to, say, $525 a month. Now, that does exist. So that's fairly expensive. So that's something you need to be aware of. And in fact, Calgary has the most expensive parking in all of Canada and the third most expensive parking, monthly parking in all of North America. So if you drive your car, be prepared to pay for parking. It's expensive. Number 9, guys, is we're a large city and we're growing. So, you know, Calgary covers a lot of land. So for example, we're 319 square miles in size, which is roughly 825 square kilometers. And geographically, our city here in Calgary is larger than Toronto, and that's really saying something. So this means the physical size of Calgary is huge. Now, Calgary has over 1.3 million people here, and you know, if you take into all the metro area, we're over 1.65 million. So all these people need to get around. Now, as I said earlier, Alberta and Calgary are setting record migration levels, and that, of course, increases the size of Calgary, so we are growing. And as our city continues to expand its borders, as you can imagine, we're going to continue to see more communities because they're needed. So Calgary is going to get even larger. Now, while migration is great, and we welcome new citizens here, the rapid growth means some challenges with the city's infrastructure. So that's another one on my list, guys, has to do with we are a large city and we are growing. And number 10 on my list, guys, is home prices. Historically, Calgary has been a fairly reasonable city to move to in terms of the price of homes. But I have to tell you guys, a detached home has jumped $100,000 from last year to this year already. And I would imagine, because of the continued migration and the high demand, we're going to see home prices continue to increase for at least the next few years. So that's something to be aware of. If you're moving from another larger center with more expensive real estate, that might be fine. If you're moving from a smaller center, be prepared. Real estate is expensive here. So like I said, if you are considering a move to the city of Calgary or one of the bedroom communities and you would like some assistance to purchase a home, please feel free to reach out to me. Send me a text, email, or a phone call. I will absolutely get back to you so you can live your life in Calgary, Alberta.